Are you a flat earther, or are you just like a flat earther, like a flat earth investigator?
Flat earther.
Flat earther? How long have you been a flat earther for?
I started investigating. I got into flat Earth about 2015. Actually, it was by accident, really. In a YouTube, I was researching giants, and flat Earth kept being recommended to me. And I thought, it was silly. I thought, wow, people believe the Earth is flat. That's just crazy. How can that be? And then it kept being recommended to me, and finally, curiosity getting the best of me, I said, you know what, I'm going to take a look at it. But a funny feeling goes over when you do look at it. You're kind of almost embarrassed. You're like, it's like, hey, I'm going to check out flat Earth. Okay, make sure all the curtains are closed, the doors are locked. So when I did, and I saw Mark Sargent's Clues, Flat Earth Clues, and it was on one of a sub-channel. It was a documentary, Under the Dome. Really good documentary. And I have a military background. I'm retired military, so I looked at that, and I started looking as I watched the documentary. I said, you know what? This isn't too far-fetched. A lot of this makes sense. And Mark has a special gift for making things really easy, explaining them really well, down to earth to the common person, really. I think that's a special gift. Not many people can do that.
So. Take something complicated and make it simple.
Yeah, it makes things really simple. So when I looked at it, I said, I'm going to look at this a little bit more. And I'm going to look at something different. I'm going to look at the military science end, because I was in the military. At the time, I was defense contractor. I'd already retired, and my background is artillery. And I'm going to look at that and see what, where that plays into artillery. Because artillery shoots a long way. So you would think that maybe the curvature, and I had never heard of it, being an artillery gunner. So I started researching some of the manuals, and the funny thing about it was they listed it in the manuals. Some of the manuals list the curve and what to do, but they're very clever. They never put it into, it's never applied in actual firing solutions. So that was a kind of a red flag for me. I said, something's going on here. So
there's a curve, but we don't account for it.
Right. And so I created a website. It's called flatearthintel.com. And it has a military science aspect in it, but it also uses the sun and geometry. And I was asked by I got interviewed, actually I did a 5-hour podcast with a professor of science from a college in California, unnamed. He wouldn't name it. So he said, hey, how'd you like to sit down and talk about, the shape of the Earth? I said, sure. He said, okay. So, we kind of talked back and forth and finally got the format down, and he said, what were Corey's evidences of globe, or what globe proofs did you look at? And I said vertical angle. Vertical angle meaning the curve, we're led to believe, or we're told that we live on a sphere, an ellipsoid sphere, whatever you want to call it. So that's going to have to demonstrate itself in vertical angle measurements. If it doesn't, then that curve doesn't exist and the globe is false. So I developed through the military science, the use of military science, the sun and geometry, I developed a process just measuring the sun through vertical angle at distance, and then applying the distance and what you get for the vertical angle. And if it exceeds 90 degrees, which is the sun's limit, because the sun is always 90 degrees to a person, place, or thing every single day, of the year. It's in the equatorial plane. So if it exceeds that 90 degrees, it fails that model. Well, when I did the first test, I was in Afghanistan in a war zone. I did around 80-some tests. 58% of those tests failed. The globe model failed. I came back to the U.S. and I said, no, I'm going to test on the other side of the Earth. 53% of those tests failed. And I was on latitude of 34 over in Afghanistan and 33 over here on North American continent. So it failed on both sides of the terrestrial Earth. So what does that tell me? The Earth is flat. So now, people are very skeptical when you tell them that, because they're on the website. I explain how to do it, step-by-step process, and there's a lot of stuff on it. You can get lost in it. There's a lot of information. I tell people, don't try and absorb it all in one reading. You're not going to do it. You're not taught that.
Yeah.
I said, take your time, go through it. I said, eventually, after you look at it, research it, and do it enough, you're going to understand why it works and how it works, and why the Earth is flat.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's the really beautiful thing about this is we're all getting out there and doing our own experiments to come to our own conclusions.
Yeah, because it's what we're presented.
Uh-huh.
I had to look back, why did I think the Earth was a globe? I never tested the surface of the Earth before, until I got into flat Earth. I was always told in my education system. I never did a test. People say, well, there's sticks and shadows, Aristophanes. And then I throw them, okay, so how long was the stick? You never know how long the stick was.
Yeah.
Did they put the stick in at 90 degrees or was it a can? How do we know that? We don't know that.
We don't even know if he used a stick.
I explained that to a college professor and I said, that test is ambiguous, right? He agreed. He said it's an ambiguous test, but yet you're still teaching it in college. It's because, and here's why I tell people, I said, look, sticks and shadows, if you take a stick and put it in the ground, okay, and we look at Aristophanes, he did a distance of about 500 miles between positions. If your shadow angle is going to be about 82.8 degrees, somewhere around there. That means your off shadow angle, okay, is going to be about 7.3, 7.2 degrees. Well, you add that plus your shadow angle equals what? 90 degrees. That means your surface is flat.
Yeah.
And that just boggles people. They're like,
yeah.
It's ambiguous. It's an ambiguous test. Vertical angle, there are other tests that you can do. Long distance photography for many is the easiest.
Yeah.
We can see far beyond the curve.
Yeah.
That's really probably the easiest one for most people because digital HD,
Yeah.
is now technology has changed.
Yeah. So how's your family handling all of this?
My son's a flat earther. My wife, not so much. She's more resistant. She's kind of on the. She thinks I'm too much into flat Earth and not much attention to her. So
I get you there.
I hear that's a cry.
Yeah.
So I said she didn't come to this conference, but she's been to a few conferences with me. So
Yeah.
I think these conferences are great. Flat Earth to me is like a family. The community is like a family. It really is.
It's a family reunion full of people that you never even realized were in your family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's really great. Yeah, thank you.
I'm a flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther.